Well, we have a very powerful cyclone that is going to develop off the southeast coast of the United States, but for the Northeast, it's mostly a miss, unless maybe in southeastern New England. But in the South, it's a different story. We've got winter storm watches and winter storm warnings up for areas from Virginia down into Georgia. Lots of cold weather advisories and extreme cold warnings also up as this and winter, which is getting to feel endless, just continues. But you know what? There's a start and an end to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and we're going to start it tonight. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, if you shop on Amazon, you can do us a big favor and use our referral link to get you there. Amazon throws us a little bit of coin when you do that. And as a result, the Joe and Joe Weather Show live podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m., is commercial free, and we appreciate very much those of you who have done that. And Tempest by Weatherflow. It's the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Get one and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link for this is on the chat board tonight at the very top. It's pinned there. It's also on the description to this podcast on YouTube. And then remember that if you do buy something from Tempest, whatever it is, use the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast coupon code, which Joe Rayo will tell you is.
Well, I will. It's going to, it is, the coupon code is winter 2026. And if you use that coupon code, you can purchase anything from Tempest, anything you want, and get 10% off. And by the way,
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but of course, we have Groundhog Day coming up on Monday and
I have a great
Tuesday.
recipe for groundhog. Go on.
Yes, and on Tuesday at 9:53 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to
Halfway
reach
day.
the halfway point of winter, the midpoint of winter between the winter solstice and the March equinox. And so we will be half done with winter astronomically, although if you're into the meteorological point of view, winter was half over on the 15th of January,
Yeah,
meteorological winter.
that's correct. All right. In the meantime, we've got winter weather everywhere. I'm starting to get sick of this cold here. It's it's it seems endless. 31 right now at my house here in North Georgia. I'm under a winter storm watch, Joe, which is very exciting here. Everybody in town is just jumping for joy, doing snow dances. I'm not kidding you. It's just, you know, they can't wait for it to happen. But got my fingers crossed. Depending on which model I look at, I could get two or three, or I could get six or seven. Split the difference, and I'll be okay. But all the action is going to be going on in the South, clearly in the Southeast, and in the northern Mid-Atlantic, except for maybe in southeastern New England that there's a grazing. I even took out the mention of any snow for coastal New Jersey and Long Island at this point.
It does look, after looking at the operational guidance models, all seven of them. I mean, I looked at the NAM, the GFS, the GFS AI, the European AI, the ICON, the Canadian global model. They all say the same thing, that the storm that we've been, not we, but the storm that the media people have been hyping for days and days and days. And people are still. I mean, I went to pick up something at the local pharmacy today, and guy behind the desk, hey, what's going on for this weekend? What's going on? And I said nothing. He was
Then
like
why
doing
not?
napkin. I mean, like it looks like this system is going to just pass off to our south and east enough so that either if we do get anything, it will probably be in the form of maybe some spotty light snow or maybe a flurry or two. But if you're hoping or thinking that we're going to get a repeat of last weekend, or even enough to, shovel away 3, 4, 5, that is not happening. That is not happening. There'll be a bit of a gusty, blustery breeze from the northeast as the storm winds on by. The people who are really going to get hit with this will be folks down in the Carolinas, North Carolina especially, and also a good part of central and eastern Virginia, they will probably be seeing those two areas somewhere between 8 and 10, or maybe even in the worst case scenario, or the best case, depending upon how you want to look at this, maybe a foot to maybe a foot and a half of snow. It's not out of the question.
No, it really isn't. And the thing is, for those of you who don't live in the South, those of you who do live in the South and are watching the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m., and never miss an opportunity to do a shameless self promotion. uh, it's you get a couple of inches here, and it shuts everything down. Uh, so, I get a kick out of reading sometimes, reading the winter storm watches and the warnings. You have winter storm warnings up for 1 to 3 inches, but a lot of these places don't have snow removal equipment, and although I have to say they do they do brine the roads here uh, in North Georgia. So where I am, which I was surprised at when I first moved down here 5 years ago. But they do handle that part of it, and they will actually do some cleanup on the main road. So it's good. At least I'll be able to get out of my house. I have four-wheel drive, so I'm happy. There's no sleet, there's no freezing rain involved in this down here. It's all going to be snow. The other thing is that we've been in this cold stretch is active for been active for quite a while, and I saw somebody say that at least in New York City anyway, 16 days in a row below freezing for highs is apparently what the record is. Do you know if that's the
I
case?
I know it was something along those lines. I think I remember that dates back to 1961. I think between the time of the famous Kennedy inaugural snowstorm and then the next big storm, which came about 15 days later on the 5th of February and dumped like almost 2 feet of snow on New York, that there was a long stretch where it had been below normal, below 32 degrees. And so I haven't kept know that we went below freezing last weekend and have been below freezing ever since. And I can tell you, actually, it's not last weekend. It was what was it? Was it Thursday? A week ago.
Yeah.
A week ago, we had the last. I remember the temperatures were in the low 40s and 40s, and
Right, that
yeah,
one day last Thursday.
right. And I took
Yeah.
down the
So then
last of
that
the
record's
Christmas
gone.
decorations.
I mean, so forget it. That record's not happening. Or
Right.
maybe, or was, I've lost track, so I have no idea what happened the prior 16 days.
Well, ever since then, if we start this on Friday, tomorrow it'll make 7 consecutive days that New York City has been below freezing, and there is the possibility, at least in my mind, a possibility that we might actually go to or even briefly go above freezing either Monday, Groundhog Day Monday, or on Tuesday. So
Right.
we're certainly not going to stretch this out to like 15 days, but it has been a very formidable stretch.
Hmm.
Joe, I mean, every night the local newscasts start off with an aerial view of the Hudson River, showing all the ice that has
Oh, yeah.
built up out there, and talking about the ferries and talking about icebreakers and all this sort of stuff. I mean, you and I remember winters where, I mean, it was a solid, sheet of ice
Oh, you could
on
drive, you could drive your car over the Hudson.
right.
Not that you
So
want to, but I mean, but they've got pictures, but from back in the early 1900s of people driving their cars across the Hudson River. And the Great South Bay also. That's
right,
another place where that's occurred. So,
right.
all right. Well, we're going to get started here. So just welcome to everybody tonight on the chat board, and welcome to those of you who are watching in the background on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We are here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. And we're off Fridays and Saturdays. We decided not to do anything tomorrow or Saturday, although if it does snow here of substance, I may just pop on in the middle of the day while it's snowing. So
The only
watch your.
places I'm sorry, the only places in the New York metropolitan, and it's not even the metropolitan area, But if you are going to be somewhere, let's say from Tom's River on south, down through Atlantic City to Cape May, you may very well pick up 2 or 3 inches of snow. Or if you're going to be out, let's say over the east end of Long Island, the Twin Forks area, again, maybe 2, 3, 4 inches. But
I don't even think those areas are going to get anything. To tell you the truth, I
it,
think it may
you
be.
know,
I think it may be a shutout for everybody.
I'm playing the role of devil's advocate. I'm just,
Yes, quite the
just being
devil you are.
be cautious here and not say, oh, it's absolutely. But yeah, I would say that most definitely for northern and central New Jersey, for Nassau County, for New York, the Hudson Valley, it's a shutout. It does not look at all like we're going to see much of anything in terms of snowfall this upcoming weekend, this upcoming Sunday. But
Uh,
again, way out east and maybe well down south, you might just get enough to, well, a cheap thrill if you're into snow.
And once again, this is why you don't pay attention to snow maps that are put out 5 days out, 6 days out, 7 days out, blah blah blah. And no matter how many times I say it, you're people are just going to reflexively go to those things, and it's unfortunate, but it's the world we live in. So here are the watches and warnings that are up tonight. The powder blue that you see indicates cold weather advisories. And so you know already if you've watched the show the last few nights, you know how I feel about cold weather advisories. The blue is extreme cold warnings, and they're up for northern New York, and they're also up for Mississippi and Louisiana. It's going to get really cold behind this storm here in the deep south. And we have winter storm watches up for much of northern and eastern Georgia, including Atlanta, by the way, under a winter storm watch, all of South Carolina, and that includes the coast, it includes Charleston. We have I'm sorry, winter storm watches for central and eastern North Carolina, south central and southeastern Virginia. They've already gone to warnings in western North Carolina and easternmost Tennessee and in southwestern Virginia. So I imagine that the other offices, unless I give this a quick refresh just to make sure they haven't done it in the middle of a shift, and they didn't, at least not yet. So I imagine that tomorrow morning, a lot of these are going to be winter storm warnings. Not a whole lot happening. You look at the surface map, it's pretty quiet and it's cold. Temperatures in the teens and single digits around the Great Lakes and Northern Plains, mostly teens and low 20s in the Northeast and down into the Mid Atlantic states. If you want warm weather, well, relatively speaking, it's in the 60s in Florida late this afternoon. Miami is 73. That must They must have their coats on in South Florida. They have to.
Yeah. I heard somewhere where they said that over the weekend the chill factor in Miami will get down to like the mid or upper 20s.
Right. Here's some other warmer temperatures, quote unquote, 50s and to near 60. Although along the Texas coast, particularly in the coastal bend down to Brownsville, it's in the mid to upper 70s. So there's some pleasant weather there. And out in the west, I mean, it's been incredibly quiet and out in the west. The temperature's relatively warm. In Colorado, a lot of 40s and 50s. In Wyoming, it's in the 40s. In central and western Montana, it's in mid to upper 40s, going all the way westward into Washington and Oregon, 50s and 60s in California. Because when in the wintertime, when it's extremely cold in the east, it is highly likely that it is warm in the west. Uh, Not a whole lot going on the satellite. There are quite a bit of there's quite a bit of cloud cover, but nothing much coming out of this across the Great Lakes and into parts of the Northeast. Also seeing some high clouds moving through the Southeast, and we're seeing some subtropical moisture coming out of the Pacific and heading into Texas, along with some moisture going into the Pacific Northwest. And there's rain up there, and you see it coming in. And in the colder air in the Dakotas, some areas of light snow, also some light snow breaking out tonight in southern Illinois and southern Indiana into northern Kentucky. A little bit of lake effect action, but not much. WPC, Joe, the weather prediction folks, And I don't know, I seem to think to me this is a little bit of a push. They actually have, this is the probability for at least 2 inches that I have up on the screen. And we have um, a blue is 40 to 50% chance for at least 2 inches for southernmost New Jersey, and then just touching the coast, going up a little bit further to the north, maybe in southeasternmost Ocean County. I don't know. Again, from what I've been seeing, I know the NAB tries to sneak up a little snow in there. Today it did it on a couple of runs, but all the other models that I've looked at show absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, you can see very high probabilities of 95 to 100% probability in Southeast Virginia, Central and Eastern North Carolina, into South Carolina. Myrtle Beach has a 95% chance for at least two. I'm in the 50 to 60% chance um,
Now,
of
Myrtle Beach is where, isn't that where our friend Von Olin is right now?
yes. Richard must have brought it down here with him. So here's the probability of two. We'll go to the probability of four, and we are seeing, a fair for this part of the country, South Carolina in particular, coastal South Carolina. There is an 80% probability of at least four, and that extends well inland and then points north. And that red area is a 95 to 100% probability for at least four. And for six, we're going to show you for six. We've got a large area in North Carolina, easternmost South Carolina, indicating an 80% or higher probability for at least six. And that includes Wilmington, North Carolina. Who knows? They may wind up with 9 or 10 before it's all said and done. So, the probabilities here, at least from what WPC is telling us, is pretty high. And in terms of moisture, uh, there's a system for the middle of next week. So that's where you get this tenth to a quarter of an inch that's being indicated for the Northeast, and lesser amounts as you go north and northwest. Also, about a quarter to as much as a half an inch in the Ohio Valley, a half an inch, a quarter of an inch in southern Virginia, but a general half to 3 quarters, and also showing half to 3 quarters up in North Georgia, and some of that's going to be snow. The snow ratios here, Joe, are going to be high. It's going to be in the upper teens, and it's going to be snowing here in the upper with temperatures in the upper teens and low 20s. I'm going to be very interested to see that because I was looking at the Kuchera snow numbers for up here, and they're in the 5 to 7 range, and they're kind of assuming a snow ratio of about 18 to 1. So if that happens, it'll be a gift for me. Very dry in the west, except the far northwestern corner of Washington State, where we are seeing several inches or more over the next week. I want to just show the upper air here because this is this upper air has was very interesting in that you're getting a cutoff low. You mentioned this back a couple of weeks ago when we saw the models trying to drop a cutoff low down into Georgia. Remember?
Yes.
And you pointed out that you were having a conversation with Mrs. Rayo along the
When was the
lines of,
last time we saw something like that? That's
well, here it
ridiculous.
is. And yeah, and this is, I've learned one thing I've learned in my many years. In weather, you never say never. I was having a conversation with Kenny Musey today. I don't know if he's on the chat board tonight. With respect to the all-time record low in New York City was 15 below zero back in 1934, and that we'll never see that again. And I just immediately responded by saying, never,
Never say,
never
never
say
say
never.
never, never.
Okay.
Yep.
That was a crazy, I went back and actually looked at the synoptic maps for that particular event, and there was a 1074 millibar high that came roaring down out of Canada, and we had pretty much a straight north wind from Greenland all the way down the Hudson Valley. I mean, it was brutal cold air, utterly brutal cold air. Uh, maybe that's a once in a multi-generational type event, but one day it is going to happen, and it'll surprise everybody. and it'll also get the media into a frenzy like you've never seen before. But back to the upper low, here it is diving southward. And the thing is, if you look at what's going on up in Maine and up in southeastern Canada, you have the formation of another upper low there. And that is just basically helping to suppress all of this. There's also a short wave right behind it that, it gets down here into Georgia. And because of what's going on in northern New England and southeastern Canada, it can't lift northward. If that wasn't there, you would close this off and lift it northward in a negatively tilted fashion, oriented northeast, northwest, southeast. Instead, it gets shoved out to the east, and it does the lifting. It does when it starts to lift up. It's way out in the ocean and lifts
Right.
up towards Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. And the other, the little cutoff in Maine drops over Long Island and southern New England to support that. You needed this to happen. That upper low that you see, and let me just draw it in. Okay, if this were going to we're going to come up the East Coast. There's your upper lows. Okay, in order for that upper low is basically pivoting that around. You would have needed it to be back here somewhere in Michigan, and then you would have had the upper low. From Georgia, it would have come right up the coast
It would
instead
have
of
been
going
like
way out.
it would have been like a place kicker in football, trying to kick a punt
Yeah,
up the Atlantic seaboard. Yeah,
and the punter right now is too far to the right.
right.
and that is really what it boils down to with respect to all of this. And here's how it's going to play out on the surface. I'm going to switch this to the European momentarily. Just give me a moment here. Let's do that. Let's go to the European.
And we have a
And
couple of people, on the chat board who have already thrown the towel for this and saying, "What about the next one next Thursday?" I
yeah,
mean, please give me a break here.
let's get this one finished.
Yeah,
You know, we'll get this
as
one finished.
as my
But
Italian grandfather would have said, "Uffa."
yes. Well, here's your setup. Cold tomorrow again. I mean, all this week it's been one of the easiest forecasts, just going for low teens and single digits in low teens on warmer urban areas and single digits inland and below zero temperatures well inland. That has played out virtually every day, and high temperatures generally mid-teens to low 20s. And there's your low starts to form Friday night off the southeast coast, and the upper low interacting with that causes snow to break out in eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, northern Georgia, and then I actually get into some darker blue snow here come Saturday morning. So this will be late Friday night. 100 likes.
Yep.
Thank you. If you like the show, hit the like button. But there's your snow breaking out, filling in. The coastal low begins to deepen. And by the way, there are multiple low centers with this, but the main low center is off the coast of North Carolina. You see it there at 979 low. And all of that just sort of they all seem to be rotating around each other. The 79 low is the reflection of the upper low. That's where really all the energy is. The lead energy runs way out ahead of it. And some snow pivots into southeastern New England. You see it there, some steady snow, and that might be the one spot that gets something. Maybe that touches eastern Long Island. In instances like this, I've seen happen where the snow does back a little bit further westward than what the models are showing, but it's going to have to do an awful lot of backing to get it much past, say, Long Island and coastal New Jersey. And again, I'm kind of thinking that this could wind up being a shutout all the way around, because the European of all the models is the furthest left, by the way. And
Right.
then it goes goodbye. The other thing is, and this is good news actually, initially you're going to have a northeast wind Saturday night ahead of this. But as the low begins to move northward, that wind's going to turn more northerly. So that I think will minimize any coastal flooding issues. And even though it's going to get breezy, Joe, the strongest winds are going to be offshore.
Yes. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, here in the Hudson Valley, the further inland you go, it'll be breezy out there, but I don't expect winds locally to get much higher than let's miles per hour in gusts, not in sustained. And it'll be a different story, of course, if you're right along the coastal plain, where they'll probably be seeing stronger winds. But you're right, because of the fact the winds are coming from the north and northeast, uh, the potential for coastal flooding actually it could even be what they call blowout type conditions. The winds are going to be blowing the water for the most part away from the coastline, and so you're not going to get it's not going to be like the our worst flooding situations for, let's say, Freeport, Long Island, or places right along the South Shore. I mean, those whenever we see those winds coming from a south and southeast direction, a sou'easter, if you will, that's when you get the real damage or flooding concerns for folks along the South Shore of Long Island or right along the Jersey Shore. But it's I know people out there on the chat board. I saw the just now one of our regulars, who I wish wasn't really a regular, calling this a burger. I don't really understand. I never heard a storm referred to as a burger, but
I think he left out the word nothing. Who you
well,
who
maybe.
who are you talking about?
Our dear friend Mr. Fairchild.
Oh, okay. No,
He's he's disappointed. I know
you know,
Mr. Livingworth. Mr.
grow up
Livingworth is
already.
disappointed.
He's what are we 5 years old? It's
I
a
mean,
nothing. He's referring to that as a nothing burger, is what he's the saying.
it's a nothing burger. All
Right.
right. Yeah. Well, Bobby Livingworth and Reuben Fairchild, they probably are about the same age and they talk the same lingo. I don't understand after what we've just went through last weekend why there would be quote disappointment unquote in what
Yeah, I mean,
is not to transpire. You know,
that that's a good that's a very good point to make because statistically in New York City, based on New York City measurements, okay, and snow records, a 10-inch snowfall happens once every 3 years. Okay, once every 3 years. All right, so it's hard enough to get one storm in a winter, let alone two or three. All right, and there's still plenty of time for another one to happen, but if you look at winters where there have been multiple 10-inch plus snowstorms, you probably can count them on your hand. Okay. They just don't happen that often. But here's the South, where in the last few years it's happened quite often. And in some of the oddest places. But I put up this is from Pivotal Weather, and these are the Kuchera um, amounts. And those of you who don't know, Mr. Kuchera came up with a way of modeling snowfall based on precipitation and snow ratios. So, at least in the Carolina Mountains and in North Georgia, uh, the numbers are running in the 7 to 11 inch range, up and down the Smokies, and down to me. I'm blowing it up. That's me. I'm the 7.2. That dot is about where my house is, Joe. You see it?
wow, wow.
Okay. So that's Union County. I live near the dot. 7.2. All of this is in the pink shading here is 6 to 7 inches. Uh, go
Now,
into
do
the
you have a
next.
snow shovel at least?
I don't have a snow shovel.
Oh, God.
I have a spade, that I use in the yard, a big one, but I don't have a snow shovel. That's fine. I'll be able to get out the door. It'll be fine. If fluffy snow, I'll get out my leaf blower and just blow it off the deck. So you know what? I'm glad you reminded me. I got to make sure I got my batteries charged up from my leaf blower, so this way I could use that to clear the snow off the deck. But there it is, 7.2, northwestern South Carolina, some 8 and 9 inch amounts. Atlanta on the Cuchera is this 2.1. And they actually, ever since 2014, when they had the 1 inch storm that shut down the entire town during rush hour, and people it would be the equivalent of a 20-inch blizzard in New York, where people abandoned their vehicles and everything else. They actually have spent a lot of money investing in um, snow removal equipment. So it hasn't happened in that magnitude since. But you can see some pretty hefty amounts for the Peach State. And there you go, the Palmetto State, South Carolina, 8, 9 inch amounts, 5.8 for Myrtle Beach, 3.3 for Charleston. And then we headed to North Carolina. This is where it gets a little tricky because the upper low is probably, and the deep low offshore is probably going to cause some banding. That and the topography, that's why you see the numbers actually go down in the middle part of the state and then pick up again when you go further east. And then there's another low area. This is at least what the model is saying. Now, whether it turns out this way is a whole other story. Southeastern Virginia, up to 10 inches in just west of Norfolk. Virginia Beach gets about 6 or 7, if this is right. And up in Richmond, 2 to 3, at least from the standpoint of the European. And you see where it kind of cuts off about an inch in Washington, D.C., if it makes it that far north, and into central and southern Delaware, and maybe a coating in South Jersey, which is what the European is indicating. And then further east, we take a look in southeastern New England. This is the other place that might get clipped out on Cape Cod. And you and I remember back in the late 70s and 80s, there was a whole string of years where storms were, New York City would miss out on snowstorms that Cape Cod would get buried under.
Who was the person when we were working at News 12 Long Island who lived in Noyak?
Oh, Don
You remember?
Thompson.
Yeah, and he used to bitterly complain because at that time the National Weather Service was at Rockefeller Center, and he would
Yeah.
tell, and he would call the Weather Service and tell them, "Hey, I got like 8 inches," and they would like laugh at him or
Oh,
they
well,
wouldn't
listen,
believe
I,
him.
I, I had the same frustration uh, when I first moved out, when I was working at News 12, and I lived in central Suffolk County. And, he was right. We there was a 1 foot snowstorm in early December back, I think, in '87. And if you went 20 miles on either side of it, you got next to nothing. It was a freak event, and no one believed me. And today it wouldn't happen because everybody's got a camera on their phone. And then once the Weather Service moved out on Long Island, they finally began to understand how different the climate was in central and eastern Long Island. These sort of generic snow changes to rain along the coast didn't, they discovered that it didn't work that way
Yeah,
for Long Island, the same way it works in Jersey, for example.
I was filling in for Norm Devoskin one weekend when there was indeed one of those crazy systems where there wasn't all that much New York and Nassau County, and it was much heavier to the east. And I remember telling Ken Dickman, the late great Ken Dickman, who was the assignment editor at News 12 Long Island. I said, Ken, they're probably getting clobbered with lots of snow out east. Maybe you might want to send a camera crew. And he didn't believe me, or he, in a nice way, he said,
Yeah,
"Well,
because
I don't think we're
they
getting
had that they had that New York City mentality. A
right."
lot of those people had that New York City mentality, and they also paid attention to the New York City weather forecast, which would never talk about what was going on. If you were, maybe okay, Western Nassau County, but everybody else never got so much as a mention with respect to what
Right.
was going on further to the east.
Ab-
Yeah, I had the same
Absolutely.
problem. They didn't.
Yep.
They wouldn't believe you. Unbelievable that they wouldn't believe you. I just want to really quickly run through the long range because there are things in the long range that are worth looking at just in general. Um, I know everybody gets bent out of shape with respect to weather systems. Not talking about models that are showing huge storms or anything, but it does appear that we still remain in this cold pattern after this goes by. And there is something for the middle of next week that's going to try one lead system that comes down. Now, the European doesn't do very much with it. The GFS and the AIs of the GFS and the European have some kind of low coming down uh, from North Dakota and moving across the Ohio Valley. And because we have the NAO is somewhat negative. These divers are going to try to take tracks a little further south. So here's one for the middle part of next week. And then there's another diver right behind that one next weekend, and yet another one that comes along. This one from the middle of the country. Again, now we're going way out in the long range, so who knows if it'll be there, when we look at it tomorrow. But the pattern does continue to be active, and it also looks to be cold for a while. The European weeklies, which I have here somewhere. Here we go. The European weeklies. So this is the week of that you're seeing on the screen now is the week of Monday, February 2nd to Monday, February 9th. Below normal temperatures for up and down the eastern seaboard. If we go to the next week, which is the 9th to the 16th, below normal temperatures, above normal in the west. 16 to the 23rd, below normal temperatures. 23rd to March 2nd, below normal temperatures. March 2nd to March 9th. You want to say it? Below
No,
normal
you can.
temperatures.
Yeah.
And March 9th to March 16th, below normal temperatures. If that verifies, Joe, if this verifies, this will go down as probably one of the worst winter long range forecasts that was put out by not just by CPC, but by a whole host of other people. We're talking about a mild winter. They're already in the bag for it just from December into this almost the end of January. You're
Yep.
never going to, I mean, they're not going to get it. It's not, you'd have to have a February of massive proportions of above normal temperatures to undo the below normals of December and January.
It's been crazy. What else can you possibly say? You're absolutely right, though. In order to balance out what we've already seen, December was cold. January, need I say, has been cold. You really would need a very mild month of February and March and that even would work because March is not officially part of meteorological winter. But already we've gotten 2 of the 3 months of winter, meteorologically speaking, colder than normal. And even if you were to get above normal in February, that still wouldn't balance out what has already happened in December and in January.
um, uh, Andrew Del Virginia, 9185. Why does the national blend of models continue to show so much snow for coastal New Jersey? Okay, good question. The national blend of models has been getting attention over the last few days, and here is the national blend of models. And the national blend of models, this is for. I'm going to just change the timing on this, just to just to get some noise out of it. This is for this event, Joe. The National Blend of Models says 6 inches for Islip, 5 inches for New York City, 4.7, 5.8 for Sandy Hook, 7.1 for Tom's River, 6.1 for Vineland.
Are you putting this up on the screen? Because it's not
Oh,
on the
thank you,
screen.
thank you. That's why I'm. That's why when I solo, I make that mistake all the time. Take a look. This is the National Blend of Models. It comes out four times a day, and it's often quoted in various weather discussions. I guarantee you that I hate. I'm sorry. Let me take that back because I always say in the back of my mind that there's that 1 in a million chance that it'll happen, but is a pretty good bet that this is not going to verify. And for those of you who don't know what the National Blend of Models is the title really kind of describes what it is. It's a blend of various components of the GFS ensembles, and there's a few other models in there. I don't think the European models or their ensemble members or whatever, however many they use, is in this. But whichever ones they're using, they must be the ones that like to make snowstorms, because they threw out some really obnoxious numbers in the last event, and the snowfalls from the last event were, pretty sizable. General 8 to 12 in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, and southeastern New England it was, in and around the Boston area they wound up with 20. Those higher amounts actually wound up verifying, but the National Blend of Models was showing 18 to 20 inch amounts over New Jersey and Long Island, and clearly that didn't happen. Only 2/3 of it did in some places. So you can see the numbers from that here. I suspect that tomorrow these numbers will go down. Okay,
You would
they
hope.
should.
Yeah.
They certainly should. I just want to check since I have it up on the screen. Why don't we take a look at the this is the European ensemble run. So that's snow depth that you're seeing. Now that that happened, let me just go back to the MB and make sure I had the right um for total snowfall. Yes, so this was total snowfall on the National Blend of Models. I'm going to switch to the EPS, which is the European ensembles, and I have to change that now to snowfall 10 to 1. And this is for this particular event. Now, the ensembles were running big numbers through yesterday, and then last night they finally came down. When I say big numbers, they were running 5, 6, 7 inch amounts. Now they're showing 2 to 3 inches over eastern Long Island, an inch at Islip, and some 2 to 3 inch amounts in coastal and southern New Jersey. I tend to think that that's even here, it's a push. I just don't, from what I'm seeing with the operationals, maybe at the last minute there'll be some backing westward a little bit where the coastal areas might pick up a coating to an inch or two, but I think it's kind of a long shot. And we might as well look at the plumes while we still have them. And you'll notice that the SREF numbers here are in the order of fractions of an inch, okay, except down in Cape May where there's about 2. And then you see some of the other numbers here as you get into the Carolinas and back over into northern Georgia and into the Carolina mountains. This is 10 to 1 snow ratios, folks, on this map. So in the mountains here, it's going to be more like 15 or 18 to 1 if the Kuchera model is correct. So there you go. So there you are. We're not going to add shows this weekend unless something at the last minute were to surprise. I might jump on Saturday while it's snowing here, but I might also be enjoying myself too much to do that if it is snowing here. So in which case, we will be back Sunday night, and Briller Jeopardy will resume Sunday night at 7:35 p.m. Does that work for you, Mr. Rayo?
It does. We'll be
Okay.
here. Still just as cold as ever.
Yep, exactly. And everybody have a safe and nice weekend. And root for me, okay? Root for me that I get the snowfall amounts that are being predicted by some of the models. And we'll see
Well,
you
as I
on.
said, I made a comment on my Facebook page about how North Carolina was going to get hit with lots of snow over the weekend on Sunday, and I said I feel that we should spread the love, spread it around, and why should we be stuck with all the fun up here? So we'll send a little down south, and maybe you'll get what you're asking for, Joe.
Yes, and somebody just asked on the chat board, when was the last time we've had prolonged cold like we've had this winter so far? You really have to go back to the winters of 13, 14, and 14, 15. 20, 13, 14, and 20, 14, 15, which were spectacular winters for cold and snow and in the Northeast and in the Mid-Atlantic states. So,
Yeah, and my daughter brought this up a few nights ago. As those of you know, my burner, oil burner, went on the fritz, and the problem was the oil was gelling. When it gets very very cold, this tends to happen, and it tends to clog the unit up, and you don't get any heat. And we had to pour some kind of special ingredient into the tank. In fact, I topped my tank off to help mix the material in. But my daughter said, Dad, I remember when we first moved up here in Putnam County. We moved up here in 2002. He said, didn't we have like there were mornings when we had like 10 and 12 below temperatures and 8 below, and it hasn't gotten that cold yet. In fact, it was, like 2, 3 degrees, and yet here we have this problem. Says, how come we didn't have this problem before? And I thought about it for a few moments, and I realized when we bought this house in 2002, Joe, we had an underground tank. Our tank was underground,
Right.
and we had that tank from 2002 until 2018. We were told by the powers that be here in the in our area that if we wanted to ever sell this house,
You had to get rid of it.
or, or you have to get rid of an underground tank. You really should not have an underground tank, and it's bad for the ecology or whatever. And so we got the new tank, which is a Roth tank, and maybe some of you even have a Roth oil tank. They're one of the best, and but it's above ground and it is exposed to the elements. And we got that tank in 2019, and this was the first winter since then that we've had this problem since we had the new tank.
Your oil
So
tank is outside the house?
yes,
Really?
yeah.
Wow. I never knew that
Well,
people had oil tanks
well,
outside
actually,
their
let me
house.
tell you, my son has a tank, an oil tank, but his is in the garage.
Right. Mine was in the
But
basement. When I lived
oh,
in Long
okay,
Island, mine was in the basement.
right. Well, like I said, my first tank was below ground, and it was a big tank. It was 1,000 gallon tank.
Mhm.
Let me tell you, it wasn't any fun taking that thing out. And uh,
It also
but we
cost
never
you.
had any problem. But we never had any problems with it in terms of what we were experiencing this week. But this tank is above ground, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who have above ground tanks exposed to the elements outside that need to be concerned whenever it gets as cold as it has been. But again, it hasn't gotten that cold here since we got the tank in 2019. So
Right.
it's been 7 years, 7 years of winters where we've had cold weather, but it has never been like anything like what we've had now, or as prolonged a period of very cold weather as what we're having right now.
It surprised me that they have the tank outside, but you learn something new every day. All right. We'll see everybody on Sunday night. So everybody have a great weekend. All right, one more question. Oh, I'm not answering that question. Email me that, Tom. Okay. I'll see you. I'll see you guys all, everybody on Sunday night. Right, Mr. Rayo?
We'll be here.
Okie doke. Bye bye.